Part three, Chris, at PLow35. Does Chris think Betdaq can overtake or become on par with Betfair?
Um, yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, I think going back to what we were saying in an earlier part about the legislation, I think, to be honest, they're both in quite a bit of trouble unless they can access the global liquidity. And affordability checks are just going to slowly but surely knock out the whole domestic exchange model. And if you look at, say, Betfair, they have huge markets where they open up to global liquidity on cricket. So, like an IPL game, you'll get 100 million traded, but whereas a Premier League game, it's like under 2 million. So, I think that I think what's happened with what the problem with the exchanges face is that when they started up in the early 2000s, we were looking at Britain was trying to be like a global hub for gambling, and they were all taking bets around the world. And then slowly, individual countries regulated, and they had to close down all the foreign markets. And obviously, there is a way into them through white labels and so on. And I think that's the way it's going to go. I think in terms of global liquidity, we're probably going to be looking at the next big change in the industry will be because it's always technological change that drives things, whether it's like the telephone, postal service, postal bets, telephone bets, the internet. It's always that drives it. And I think the next thing is going to be the blockchain and betting an exchange based on that really is person to person. And I think when that comes into fruition, I think the liquidity will be global. And I think that that'll mean that the small domestic exchanges would just be completely unappealing. So yeah, I wouldn't think that they're going to. I think whether BetTaq overtakes Betfair or not, I don't think it will, but I don't think it. I don't think it's particularly relevant in 5 or 10 years anyway.
Okay. Mr. PC Maguire. He's got a long question, so I'll read it as it's typed. Why is Chris launching a tipping site in a climate of affordability checks and account closures for any winners? He says 80% refuse to comply with checks. If nobody can get on and multi accounting ends you up in prison, why bother? But if the service is free, he still applauds you.
And yeah, I think that. So I mean, I think he's kind of answered his own question. Why would I or why would we put these tips and make them available? It's because I can no longer get on. So it's no longer betting with the sort of recreational bookmakers is no longer an option for me. Therefore, why not make the information available to people that want to bet? And I think the way so when I did this to win the 100,000, I got two accounts asked for affordability checks because what I did was put a small amount of money in and build it up by placing a large number of bets. So I think it's still possible to do that. What you can't do is deposit 10 grand and bet from the start £200 a bet. But what you can do is start with a very small amount and build it up. Or if you just want to place, £10 bets at say a 10% margin and win a pound. But if you do several hundred of those a month, suddenly you can make some decent money. It's never going to be life changing, but it can be a supplement. So that's the reason. It's because I can't get on myself. So why not make it available to other smaller punters that want to have a go and use the same thing?
Okay. At I love tipsters one. Can you ask Chris if he thinks his football model would beat Pinnacle and the exchanges, or does he only advise to use it for soft books?
Um, yeah, it's for the recreational books. I mean, if you could beat Pinnacle or if you could beat Betfair on a big market like cricket, or if you could beat the Hong Kong racing on the Hong Kong Jockey Club tote, you wouldn't I don't think you wouldn't sell that because you could keep betting yourself. Um, yeah, as I said in the last question, the reason why this is becoming available is because it's for the soft books, and I can't use it anymore. I mean, I don't know why you, if you had something that worked on with the sharp operators, why you would sell it, because you would just use it yourself. So no, they wouldn't be, they're not designed to work for that.
Is Chris just a personal input for me? Is it because you've met, I'm assuming you've made your money, so you're not that bothered anymore, even though you love to do it? Is it sort of the financial side of it's irrelevant now, or less relevant than it would be?
Less relevant, but also it's like um, I have a system sitting there that I know works, or I know has worked, and I would expect to carry on working. Um, I can't use it, and it's annoying. I'm not. I understand why the bookmakers close accounts. It's part of their how they work commercially, and that's fine. But for me, why not let other people, try and win some money off them as well? So yeah, that's the reason. I mean, I've got other gambling things that I can do, um, with the sharper books and so on. So I'm not because I can't use it. Yeah, I'm happy to let other people use it.
Okay, two questions to go, plus one from me at the end. At Paceman 1 2 3 4 5 A, is value the be all and end all of betting? Personally, he looks for the most likely winner first, then bets it if he considers it's a bigger price than he expected.
Well, yeah, from what he's saying, he is value betting. But what he's doing is saying first thing he wants to do is to find out what his top rated horse or whatever it is he's betting on is, which I suppose means in his mind it's the most likely thing, and then seeing is that then a bigger price, which is what value betting is. Is it bigger than I think it should be? But by doing it with the top rated one, you're more likely to get, provided his methodology works, is you're more likely to get something that's a shorter price that is value, and therefore more likely to win. So it means you get that sort of dopamine hit because you get more winners. So I'd understand why that you'd want to bet on something that you think should be short that is value. But he's still definitely looking for value there by saying, is the price bigger than I think it should be?
There's one from me. It wasn't on your list, but I'm sure you won't mind answering it. When we talked, I'm sure many of the punters here has pricked up with the idea that you can create bots that can, for very little risk, and sit there while you're on the beach or sleeping and tap away, nicking you a few quid hourly. Is that something that you would like produce to order to somebody if they asked you to create one for them? And if so, what sort of, how much work would go, what sort of money are we talking about to buy one of these wealth creating machines?
No, because if I had one, when you have one that works, you want to make the money yourself. It's like if it's working on Betfair, there's a limit to what you could bet. So I think when I was doing dog racing, you wouldn't want to bet at any one time on any one dog more than to win or lose 50 quid. You do more than that, and the liquidity is not there in the market because you need to be able to, obviously trading, you need to open the price. It's two choices. When do you open the trade, as they call it, and when do you close it? Now, if you've got too much money, you can't close it, and your margin has disappeared. But it's an ever changing arms race when you're doing trading models. I mean, when the Australian Betfair was based in Tasmania, I mean, I'll be looking for like servers in Tasmania or as close as possible that have the lowest latency to get the bet on when before someone else saw it. When there was a good opportunity. So it's very different to punting, and no, it's not something that I would make to order. No, because I think if it worked, I would use it.
Okay, so finally, this is from Colin Horde. And this is the last question, so you can be as elaborate as you like. Uh, What are Chris's views on horse racing betting in 5 and 10 years' time?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it goes back to the whole what I was saying at the start with affordability checks. They are, in my opinion, going to really, really hurt horse racing in terms of the betting side. So I think when I did a report on this last year and what I thought it was going to cost, and sort of the racing industry thinks it's going to be around 50 million a year. I think it's going to be a lot more than that, depending on how things pan out, and up to like 150 or plus over time. And but that's not going to happen straight away. So racing gets its money from owners, from media rights, and from gambling. So the media rights money deals are locked in for the next few years. So that money is going to keep rolling in. But when the rights run out, I think the bookmakers will then be offering way less money because they'll be making way less money from racing. So that's going to lead to a decline. I think you'll see tracks closing because it costs so much money to run a race meeting compared to running a slot machine software or even football, global football or American sports. They're not there for betting only. So the betting companies can just price up these events that are global events and take bets on them. They don't have the huge costs. Horse racing has huge costs and it's local. So we might be interested in betting on UK racing. How much interest has someone in Australia got on UK racing? Probably limited. So we're limited just to the local market, which was fine sort of 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when there wasn't all this global sport, there wasn't all the sport on TV. And so the decline really started in 94 when we had the national lottery, numbers games came in. And since then, sort of racing's monopoly on betting that was just football pools and racing is gone. So the way I'd see things slowly and surely declining. And again, like I said, with the bookmakers, racing needs to get its act together and work out what it actually wants to do over the next few years. What's the target here? And I think there are so many groups in racing and people that come in and manage these companies for 2, 3, 4 years, take their money and then move on. So there's a lot of short-termism, there's a lot of infighting. And I think, it's going to be a gradual decline, but the real decline will kick in when the media rights are renegotiated.
You've been very sort of active, at least on Twitter or X, with your opinions on this, and coming up with sensible figures and like you've just talked about. Would you put yourself up for being involved if the bookmakers or whatever wanted you to be like a part of trying to fight back? Is that something you'd be up for?
Um, yeah, I mean, it is already behind the scenes. Yeah, I'm doing things now. I've spoken to a lot of people involved in, CEOs of gambling companies and people and PR people in gambling companies. But what I'm getting back is people just shrugging their shoulders. They're not. No one is grasping this in terms of like the regulation and what it's doing to gambling. No one seems to really care. They're just doing their job and they're seeing out their job. I think it's really up to the owners of small betting companies, medium-sized independent betting companies to fight back. Because I don't think the big companies are going to do it. I think what I'm hearing from one place was the big companies just want to keep slots betting. That is their fundamental goal. That's where I think last year they made 3 billion from slots and 1 billion from racing. That's sort of their goal, is to keep the slots, and they will keep them because affordability checks don't really affect those kind of players. So what I'm hearing back is that people they're not willing to fight. They're not organised to fight. And yeah, what the industry needs is a extremely good PR team and an extremely, and people doing research. And there are people doing research into this, and people like Dan Moore and people like that. They can counter all the arguments put up as to why this regulation should be happening. But what tends to happen is that the gambling reformers get a paper done or some research done, or even the Gambling Commission publishes some research, and then the reformers get this into the newspapers. Their PR is excellent, and public opinion then is like, oh, we must ban advertising. We must have affordability checks because the people asking for reform are extremely well organised and financed, and the people that want to keep the status quo and fear the black market are just, yeah, they're just more like resigned to the fact that it's going to happen, and the future is going to be the black market. And I think if there was the will there, then absolutely I'd be willing to help behind the scenes. But it needs the right PR and the right press to really make a positive case for the gambling industry and gambling. And but that's something that the Betting and Gaming Council is just, at the moment, I hear people keep telling me, oh, it's going to get better. They've got a new CEO, and that's what people say behind the scenes. But I'm not seeing it. I mean, yesterday they had a sort of opening of this new single customer view thing, where if you get banned from one bookmaker because you say on a particular time frame you might have an addiction, you'll then be cut off the whole legal market. And I don't know why the bookmakers will go along with this, because it's a small step. The reformers don't just want that; they want single customer view for anyone betting more than £100. They want that information shared. So what they're doing is quite clever. Is they're asking for small things. Everyone's like, oh, we can't complain about that. We can't complain about that. But the sum of it, they're in for the long haul, and the sum of it will be massive restrictions of what people can do. And I think people are just appeasing it, thinking that's going to work, and it won't. Eventually, it'll slowly wither away the whole legal market, not just in the UK, but in all around the world. And we'll enter a phase where there's just more and more regulation. And I think, yeah, absolutely. If I can input anything, I mean, I have been, and I will continue to do so. But what it really needs is money put in, not huge amounts of money, but money put in that can then be used for PR and research along the levels of financing that the reformers have got. I mean, they're financing think tanks, different charities, different groups, and I understand why they're doing it. They have a motive. If my child had died, had killed themselves because of gambling, I'd feel the same. But I think it is completely blown out of proportion, and I think the industry needs to fight back against it.
Brilliant. Right, Chris, well, they know where to find you. Or if not, they could always get hold of me and I'll get them in touch with you. Thank you very much for your time. Thanks for answering all the questions, and thanks to everybody that sent them in. So, Chris Fawcett, thank you very much.
Thanks, Simon.